Hey guys, it's Lukion, and today I am going to be doing my February wrap-up. I read 10 books in February, which is good. I mean, historically, February has not been, like, the best reading month for me, but what you gonna do? I read quite a few books still, though, so let's just get into it. Also, the reason that I haven't been filming in front of, like, either the shelf in my room or the shelves in the other room is because they don't really look the way that I want them to, so hopefully this angle will suffice. But yes, I did read quite a few books in February, so let's just get started. So the first book that I read in the month was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and that was An Emotion of Great Delight by Tahereh and Mafi. So I got an e-arc of this book. It comes out on June 1st, and it follows a girl named Shadi, who is Iranian-American, and she lives with her family, who's kind of falling apart. She has also lost her best friend. Not like her best friend hasn't died, but like they just, fell apart. And she basically, this takes place in December of 2003 when the US has declared war on Iraq. And so this follows her and her life. I ended up giving this book, okay, so it's kind of confusing. I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5 stars, but it's like not, I'm not gonna like change my rating. So like right now it's a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, but I might end up changing my rating, I might not, but I did, as I said, I read an e-arc of it, so I want to wait until the actual book comes out so that I can read it physically, like, with the actual book, and see if my feelings change, and see if any of the things that, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of in this book will change. But, like, right now, like, if I had to change my rating, I'd probably give it, like, a 4. I really, like, enjoyed the story, and I liked the main character, I liked her journey. I thought the story was, like, super sad, and it was just, like, very, like, it was very sad, but it was also very addicting to read, because you just, like, wanted to know what would happen with the main character. My biggest critique of the book is the length. It's only, like, 200 pages, like, that's what it shows on Goodreads, and also it felt very, very short. It was just, like, it just kind of, like, ended as well. Like, the ending I wasn't the biggest fan of. It kind of just, like, stopped, and it was, like, peace out. And I kind of, like, wish there had been, like, a couple more chapters, or even just, like, an epilogue to resolve some of the things, but, I obviously can't go into, like, specifics because the book is not out for a couple of months, but it was just, like, something that, like, it felt super abrupt, and I feel like there could have been a little bit more to flesh out the story a little bit more and give it a more well-rounded ending. I usually don't care if books, like, books don't need to have, like, a neat ribbon around them for me to enjoy them, but I feel like this could have had a better ending. So the next book that I read was The Towering Sky by Katharine McGee. This is the third book in the Thousandth Floor series. This series is just, like, a fun, trashy YA story. It's like, it takes place like 100 years in the future, and there's this 1,000-story building, there's these different main characters, and we just, like, sort of follow their drama. It's not, like, anything serious, it's kind of just, like, a bunch of drama. I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5, which is, like, on par with the rest of the books. This was probably my least favorite. I just feel like there was less drama in this book. Like, I feel like things were a little bit more serious, and I kind of just wanted, like, the juicy stuff that we got in the first 2 books, but, I mean, it wasn't, like, anything huge. Like, I still gave it a 3 out of 5. It was good. It's, like, a nice palate cleanser series, so if you want something that's just, like, juicy and fun, that doesn't have, like, a ton of substance, this is a good pick. The next book that I read was Skyhunter by Marie Lu. This is the first book in a new YA duology, and it takes place in this world that has basically all of these nations have been conquered by this thing called the Carenza Federation, who a little while ago took humans and poured poison down their throats and turned them into these thing called ghosts. They're basically these monsters. They're kind of reminiscent of the creatures from The Quiet Place, or A Quiet Place, because they can't really see very well, but they have incredible hearing, so everyone who is in the group called the Strikers, which is what our main character Talon is a part of, speaks sign language, and our main character is actually mute because of this poisonous gas that she and her mother inhaled when the Carenza Federation took over where they used to live. But now she and the other strikers live in a place called Mara, which is the last free nation that has not been taken over. So I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I have liked every single Marie Lu book that I've read in the past, and I feel like this might be like one of her best. I really loved the social commentary that it made. I feel like it was really, even though this is fiction, it was very realistic and it felt very real, and I really liked how it delved into immigration and like being a refugee, and it was just, it felt very like true, even though it is like a sci-fi fantasy book. I really, really enjoyed my time reading it, and I am very excited for the sequel. Had a fun time. It was like very addicting to read. I read it in like 2 days. It was so action-packed, the pacing was so great, the characters were really enjoyable, and the writing, as per usual, was really great as well. My only like critique for it was just like, I don't know, sometimes I can just like tell when a book is not a full 5 stars. So it was really good, but it wasn't like, there wasn't that like thing that like pushed it to being the full 5. After that, I picked up My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is an alternate history book that follows Lady Jane Grey, who was the 9 Days Queen, and it's basically just like a comical look at it because Lady Jane Grey, she was queen for 9 days, and then she got beheaded by Mary Tudor, who was known as Bloody Mary, who was the sister to Edward, and all this stuff. So we follow Edward, who was the King of England at this time, we follow Jane, and then we follow her betrothed Gifford. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was interesting to read about, it was fun, but it wasn't anything like amazing. I also had pretty high expectations going into it, so that was why I feel like I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. It's also really freaking long. It's like 500 pages, and the first half of this book, nothing really happens. It's kind of just like establishing the characters and stuff, and I feel like a lot of that could have been trimmed. I ended up giving it like a 3.5 out of 5. I liked the historical aspect, and I liked the world building, because like there are people in this world, instead of like Protestants and Catholics, there are people who are verities, who are just like regular humans, and then there are people who are called Ethnians, who can kind of shapeshift, and Lady Jane Grey's betrothed Gifford turns into a horse at night. Or no, during the day, and he turns into a human at night. So it's like, it's just this like comical look at history, and I enjoyed it. I would still recommend it, but it wasn't like a favorite of mine. It was still fun though, and it was like a nice palate cleanser. After I finished that, I also picked up My Plain Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is another retelling, this time of Jane Eyre. And so we have Jane Eyre, Mr. Rochester, although he's not one of the main characters, but we have Jane Eyre as one of the narrators, and then we also have Charlotte Bronte, who is the author of Jane Eyre, and then we also have Alexandra Blackwood, who is a member of the Society for the Relocation of Wayward Spirits, so there are ghosts in this book, and, you know, like, the whole thing, like, Jane goes off to be a governess at Thornfield Hall with Mr. Rochester, and it's like this whole thing. And I enjoyed this book as well. I ended up giving it 3.5 as well. Again, it was a little bit too long. There were some chapters that easily could have been, like, either cut entirely or, like, trimmed down. It wasn't, like, my absolute favorite. I still enjoyed it. I have not read Jane Eyre, so, like, I didn't know as much about the source material as I did for My Lady Jane. Like, I knew the history a little bit more, but Jane Eyre I've never read, so I didn't know some of the things in this book. My other critique with this is that the main character Jane was just like, or like one of the main character Jane was just so irritating, and I don't know if that's like the same as it is in the original book, but she just made so many stupid decisions, and I feel like the first 300 pages of this book wouldn't have existed if Jane wasn't such an idiot. Like, she was just so irritating. She made the stupidest decisions for no reason, and I didn't understand why she was, like, making these decisions. Like, they were just dumb, and they had, like, no basis for them, and it was a little bit irritating. But I liked the ghost aspect. I liked following Charlotte. I thought that was interesting. Those were my favorite chapters to read. I liked the ghost hunting aspect, and I feel like there was an interesting twist in this book that I liked. And Jane got less annoying as the book progressed, but she was, like, easily my least favorite of the 3 narrators. And I still will read Jane Eyre because I'm interested in it and I own it. So I'm interested to see how it compares to this retelling of it. Next, I read a book that I don't have, like, many strong feelings towards, and that was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So I ended up giving this book, like, a 3.5, 3.75, 4, somewhere in that range. This book follows a young girl named Star who lives, or like she kind of splits her life between two neighborhoods. The poor, predominantly black neighborhood that she lives in, and the rich, upper class, predominantly white neighborhood that she goes to school in. And she kind of like is living two lives basically, and when she's at a party in the neighborhood that she lives in, she it ends up getting intruded by the police, and then she goes home with her childhood friend named Khalil, and they end up getting pulled over by a white police officer, and Khalil ends up getting shot. And we sort of follow, you know, the aftermath of that, and we deal with Star as she's kind of coming to terms with what happened, and, you know, we just sort of, like, delve into her life. So I am going to preface this by saying that I watched the movie of the, like, I bought this book in, like, December of 2017, and I watched the movie, like, around the time that it came out. I went to the movie theater with my friends to see it, and part of me wishes that I'd read it before I saw the movie, because I feel like it's the same, like, when you read a book and then you watch the movie's never gonna really, like, be as good, or, like, you're always gonna be comparing the two, and I feel like since I watched the movie first, I was kind of comparing it to the book, and I feel like the book was not as impactful as the movie was, if that makes any sense. I feel like this book's themes and its meaning has a lot of merit to it, and I feel like it's very important, and everyone could kind of glean something from this book. But for me, as a story, it had kind of, like, a little bit of some technical issues. Like, I feel like it was way too long. It's, like, 450 pages, and there were some scenes that kind of just, like, could have been taken out, and some subplots. Like, there were just scenes where she would be, like, feeding her dog for, like, 2 pages, and then there would be ones where she's just, like, playing basketball at school, and it lasted, like, basically, like, I don't know, 5 pages. I don't know. I feel like at some points I could tell this was a debut, and, like, I did enjoy it, but it wasn't, like, my favorite. Also, I'm very picky with the contemporary books that I do pick up. If I do pick up a contemporary book, it's usually one that I, like, I don't really pick up many contemporary, like, at this point, in my reading life. Like, I can't think of the last contemporary book besides, like, An Emotion of Great Delight that I read and, like, actually enjoyed and, like, gave 5 stars. I just, like, it's not a thing that I usually do. And so I feel like that could have also impacted this. And I don't know. I just feel like as a story, it wasn't my favorite. And it's kind of upsetting because I wish I could have enjoyed it as much as everyone else and, like, given it 5 stars and have it be, like, one of my favorite books of the year, but just wasn't that for me, unfortunately. I did still enjoy it. Like, I still gave it, like, a 3.5, 3.75, but I feel like I could have enjoyed it more. And I wonder if I'd read this before I'd seen the movie, I would have enjoyed it more if I'd read it, like, at the point when I bought it, when I, like, knew less about the issues that this book addresses. I still enjoyed it. Wasn't my favorite, but, you know, I would still definitely recommend it. Next, I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I have also owned this for a really long time, and I just wanted to pick it up and see how I felt about it. This book is about a girl named Bree who wants to be a rapper. Her father was a rapper, like an underground rapper, but he ended up dying. And her mother is a recovering alcoholic. They also live in the same neighborhood that Star from The Hate You Give lives in. And I enjoyed this book as well. I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars as well. I really liked how this book, like, I liked the themes and the meanings of this book as well, and I really liked how they were much more nuanced in this book than I feel like in The Hate You Give. I feel like there was a reason that The Hate You Give had messages that were kind of, like, more on the surface, but I kind of liked this a little bit more when they were kind of, like, just an undercurrent to the story and more nuanced, and the reader could kind of pick up on them as, the story progressed. And I also really liked the main character, Bree. I liked how she had, like, things in her life that she, like, was able to focus on. Like, she had a passion, and I liked reading, like, how she came up with her raps and everything. And I feel like I don't really listen to music, so I didn't know how I would enjoy this book, or, like, the rap aspect of it. But I really enjoyed the rap aspect of this book. I thought it was very, like, interesting, and I hadn't really read a book that, like, delved into that before. And I don't know, I just had, like, a fun time reading this book. I liked the characters. I feel like it was very interesting getting to see how her family life played into her, like, you know, actual singing life and everything, because her family's kind of living in poverty. They're like a few bills away, like a few, like, unpaid bills away from being evicted and, like, all this stuff. So I really liked that aspect, and I feel like it was something that was added another layer to the story. But overall, again, wasn't my favorite. I still enjoyed it. The next book that I read was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This book, I'm sure you all know what it's about. These 10 strangers get lured to an island off the coast of Devon, and they get stranded there, and one by one, they start dying, and their deaths start reflecting the nursery rhyme that is in the beginning of the book. And there are also these figurines on the table in the dining room that slowly get taken away as, like, the people begin to die. So, this is one of my favorite mysteries ever. I wanted to reread it because I realized I had forgotten the the ending to the story. I remembered, like, the twist, but, like, there was a crucial part in this book that I had forgotten, and I was like, I'm gonna reread the book. I haven't read it in, like, more than 3 years. Or no. I haven't read it in, like, 2.5 years, so I was like, let me get on that. And I ended up enjoying it just as much as the first time. I really loved picking up on more of the clues this time around, and I really, really liked all of the characters, and I really want to see the most recent miniseries adaptation that was of this book, because I feel like it would be very interesting to watch, and I just feel like, this is the best constructed mystery I've ever read. It's not my favorite mystery I've ever read, but it's the best constructed one. It's, like, the best-selling mystery of all time. It is just so good, and I really, really feel like this should be taught in schools and stuff. Like, the literary devices that are used in this are so clever, and the way that she weaves the story and the rhyme throughout the book is just, like, so interesting. And I just really had a great time reading it. I read it in, like, a day. It is so quick to get through. And if you were in a reading slump, I would definitely, definitely recommend this book. And I honestly gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was also a reread, and that was The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. This book is a time travel book, follows a girl named Esta who ends up traveling to 1902 New York to find this book called the Ars Arcana that can sort of, like, unlock magic and stuff. So I reread this book because I wanted to read the sequel, and I just, like, realized that I had forgotten, like, some parts of this book, and I just wanted to reacquaint myself with the world before diving into book 2. And I enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was fun to read, but again, I feel like this book was so long. It's like 500 pages, and there were so many chapters that just, like, did not need to be there. There were so many perspectives in this book that I feel like could have been cut out because they were so few and far between that we didn't get to connect to the characters that were there. Like, there was a character in here named Viola, and every, like, few chapters we would get a perspective from her, and it was just, like, not enough for me to care about her. And so I wish they had just been taken out and we'd been able to focus on Esta and Hart and Dolph. I really liked the twist at the end of this book. I thought it was very intriguing, and I liked the progression of the plot, but I feel like a lot of it could have been trimmed down and taken out because there was just, like, so many unnecessary scenes, and it kind of got, like, it was a little bit grating to read, because this book did not need to be 500 pages. It easily could have been, like, 400 or less. So I feel like the author should have taken advantage of that a little bit more, because I feel like it would have made the story even better. And then the final book that I read in February was The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. I have had this arc for like years at this point. Like, I think I got it the summer before this book came out, so like the summer of 2018. So I've had it for quite a while, and I finally read it, and I enjoyed this a lot more than The Last Magician. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought everything in this book just improved. The writing had improved, the characters, the plot, I feel like, was so much more interesting. The characters that I didn't care about in The Last Magician, I cared about a lot more in The Devil's Thief. I feel like they were just a lot more compelling to read about. The plot was way more intriguing and just, like, fun to read. I feel like this book was a lot more addictive. I feel like with The Last Magician, there were parts where I just, like, wanted to put it down, but with this, it was very hard to stop reading, so I really enjoyed that, and I just had a really fun time reading this book. I liked, the plot. There were things, again, that, like, kept me from giving it a full 5. Again, this is so long. It's like 700 pages. Again, did not need to be that long. I feel like it could have been 600, 550. There were also just, like, there was, like, a plot thing where, like, Esta is a time traveler, right? But, like, we only spent, like, there have only been 3 time periods in this entire series so far. We've had present day, 1902, and 1904. That is it. And I feel like if you're gonna have a time travel book, have a time travel book. Like, don't go there if you're not gonna go there. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity, especially since there was a huge plot point about ancient Egypt in this book, and we didn't go to ancient Egypt. So, like, I feel like that would have been so cool, and there were just, like, a few missed opportunities that if I was, like, an editor, I would have pointed out and been like, hey, you should take the characters to ancient Egypt, or you could maybe, like, expand where you go in this book, instead of just having them be in, like, the same time period and then have the other characters be in the... I mean, I understand the other characters being in one time period, but I feel like Esta and the person that she's with could have been, like, traveled around the world and, like, you know, through different eras. So, the ending of this book did leave me a bit shook, so I am interested in reading the 3rd book when it comes out in April, but, again, not my favorite, but still very, very enjoyable, and I feel like if you weren't the biggest fan of book 1, you would really enjoy book 2. But that is the end of this very long wrap-up. If you read any of the books that I read in February, I'd love to know your thoughts. I would also love to know what books you read in February, and yeah, all my social media links are in the description box below. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Bye!